Let me tell you something that's going to shake the lies the enemy's been whispering to you all week. You've been feeling like walking alone is a sign of weakness, like it's a punishment, like being misunderstood, overlooked, left out means there's something wrong with you. But I came here today to break that narrative off of you. See, we've been trained to associate strength with numbers. But let me flip the script on that for you. God does his best work in the silence. He doesn't need a crowd to call you. He doesn't need applause to anoint you. He doesn't need people to see you for him to be with you. You thought you were walking alone because you were abandoned. But could it be that you're walking alone because you were appointed? Some of the greatest miracles in the Bible didn't happen on the stage. They didn't happen in front of thousands. They happened in isolation, in desert places, in caves, in prison cells, on battlefields where nobody else would go. And you're sitting there thinking, why do I feel so disconnected? Maybe it's because God disconnected you from the noise so you could finally hear his voice. Let's break a lie right now. Just because you're alone doesn't mean you're lonely. Isolation isn't always a curse. It might just be a calling. You see, we serve a God who doesn't waste space or silence. When you feel like you've been set aside, when friends disappear, when the phone stops ringing, and when doors seem to slam shut all around you, don't panic. That might not be rejection. It might be redirection. What if the very thing you're calling loneliness is actually God's way of pulling you away from you? The world sees separation as something to fear, but the Spirit of God sees it as an opportunity to speak. And sometimes God has to clear the room just to get your attention. You're not being punished, you're being positioned. There's a difference. And that difference can change everything. When David was out in the fields watching sheep, he wasn't surrounded by admirers, he was isolated. But that's where he learned how to fight lions and bears. That's where he learned how to worship when worship watching. That's where he learned how to listen to God's whisper over the world's noise. Isolation doesn't mean insignificance, it means preparation. You don't develop the strength to slay giants in front of a crowd. You build that strength in the shadows where no one sees the tears, the prayers, the questions. So the next time you feel like you're walking through a dry, quiet place, don't despise it. Embrace it. That wilderness is the workshop where God forges your faith. You've been hidden not because you're forgotten, but because you're being formed. That's silence. Strategy. That's separation. It's sacred. We often confuse visibility with value. Just because people don't see your struggle doesn't mean God doesn't see your strength. The spotlight doesn't validate you, God's presence does. And sometimes he'll strip everything away so you can learn to lean on nothing else but him. That's not punishment. That's preparation. He's refining your character, sharpening your vision, stretching your faith. He's making sure you're not built on applause, on approval, or on popularity, but on purpose. Because if you get used to walking with people more than walking with God, you'll always feel lost when people leave. And God loves you too much to let your identity depend on company that was never meant to stay. So he isolates you to solidify you. So when you come out of that season, you don't just walk, you walk in power. So if you're in a season right now where the crowd is gone, the conversation is quiet, and the calendar is empty, rejoice. Not because it feels good, but because it's doing good. God is doing something in you before he does something through you. He's building depth before he gives you destiny. And just like a tree grows roots in darkness before it ever breaks through the soil, your roots are going deep right now. I don't fight the isolation, lean into it. It's where confidence is born. It's where your discernment is sharpened. And it's where your voice becomes more than an echo, it becomes a word. God isn't punishing you by pulling you away. He's protecting and preparing you for what's ahead. So don't curse the quiet. It's sacred ground. You keep looking over your shoulder, wondering why nobody's walking with you. You keep asking, why doesn't anyone understand me? Why doesn't anyone support me? Why does it feel like I'm walking this road by myself? But let me speak this into your spirit today. You're not walking alone, you're walking alone there. And ahead is where the trailblazers go. See, when God gives you a vision that nobody else sees, you can't expect them to walk a path they don't recognize. They don't understand you because you were never called to be understood. You were called to be obedient. You're not behind. You're not abandoned. You're not off course. You're just ahead. And that's what it looks like when you go first, when you break curses, set new standards, and walk in faith where fear once ruled. Think about pioneers in any arena, faith, business, family, or leadership. They all walked through uncertainty. They all stepped where there was no path. And most of them did it alone. That's what makes them pioneers. They're not following a map, they're drawing one. And when you're the one drawing the map, you don't get the comfort of the crowd. You get the weight of responsibility. But here's the good news, you're not leading yourself, God is leading you. So stop interpreting the absence of people as the absence of purpose. Trailblazers often walk in isolation because their destination is different. You weren't built for ordinary, you were built for breakthrough. And breakthrough doesn't happen in the comfort zone. It happens in the tension, in the unknown, in the in-between, where God stretches your faith and clarifies your calling. You keep asking why it's so hard, why the path seems longer for you than for others. But the truth is, the ones who go first always face more resistance. The first one to swing the axe breaks the hardest ground. And maybe that's why it feels heavy, because you're cutting through things generations before you didn't. You're not just walking ahead for yourself, you're making a way for those coming behind you. You're walking into a future that needs you stronger, wiser, and braver, and the strength God's building in you now will be someone else's safety later. So keep going. Keep walking. Don't wait for everyone to catch up. They're not ignoring you, they're just not called to lead like you. And that's okay. You were never meant to blend in, you were meant to go before. And I know this road can feel lonely, but lonely doesn't mean lifeless. The further you walk in obedience, the closer you get to purpose. You're not ahead because you're better, you're ahead because you're burdened. Burdened with a vision, burdened with a mission, burdened with the courage to go where others wouldn't. And while it may feel quiet now, the echo of your obedience will shake things for years to come. You're setting a precedent. You're rewriting what's possible. And one day, the ones who didn't understand your walk will thank you for not quitting. Because sometimes God doesn't show you the crowd, He shows you the cloud. The same way He led Moses, not with people, but with presence. You're not walking alone, friend. You're just walking ahead. Keep leading. There's a reason it's quiet around you. A reason why the conversation stopped, the invitations dried up, and the people you thought would run with you are sitting still. And maybe you've been tempted to take that silence personally. But what if I told you the silence is not a punishment? It's a strategy. You're looking for noise to confirm your direction, but when God gives you a vision, He often wraps it in silence, not because it's not real, but because it's not real, it's still being formed. And if you start shouting too soon, people will speak against what they were never called to carry. So God keeps it quiet, not to isolate you, but to incubate what He's birthing in you. When you feel misunderstood, remember, God didn't give them the vision. He gave it to you. You've got to understand that some things can't be shared too soon. Joseph had a dream and told it to his brothers, and they hated him for it. Not because the dream was bad, but because they couldn't handle it. They didn't see what God showed him. So sometimes the silence is not a lack of support, it's a layer of protection. You've been wondering why people don't get it, why your passion feels like a foreign language to those around you. But here's the thing, God custom built that vision for your spirit, not theirs. And if they don't understand it, it's not their fault, and it's not yours either. It's God's design. The silence gives you space to build without interference, to grow without limitation, to move without needing constant validation. You might be tempted to think silence equals stagnation. But hear me, just because it's quiet doesn't mean nothing's happening. The most strategic moves are often made in silence. Athletes train in silence. Soldiers prepare in silence. Seeds grow underground before they ever break the surface. What God is doing in you during this silent season, as small as it sounds, He's not just elevating your platform, He's establishing your foundation. And if He's quiet, it's because He's focused. Don't let the enemy convince you that the silence is God's absence. No, it's often His presence at work. He's building in you what the world isn't ready to see yet. Let the silence do its work. Don't rush it. Don't resent it. Let God use it to sharpen your strategy and fortify your faith. Silence is often the womb of destiny. And if you can learn to walk quietly with God, you'll be ready to speak boldly when it's time. Stop expecting everyone to clap for something they can't comprehend. The vision isn't up for debate, it's up for obedience. You don't need their permission to keep moving forward. What God gave you in private, He will prove in public. But first, He needs to trust that you won't fold under misunderstanding, that you won't break under the weight of being underestimated. This silence, it's part of the strategy. Because what's silent now will speak volumes later. And when it does, those same people who didn't understand will stand back in awe, not of you, but of what God did through you. Stay quiet. Stay focused. The strategy is working. You keep praying for a platform, but God sent you into the wilderness. And you're wondering, what is this place? Why does it feel so dry? Why does it feel like nothing's moving? Let me tell you something powerful. The wilderness is not a mistake, it's a mission field. You weren't sent there to die, you were sent there to be developed. God does some of his best work in places. When Jesus began his ministry, the Holy Spirit didn't lead him to a stage, he led him to the wilderness. Why? Because before you carry power, you have to survive pressure. The wilderness strips away the comfort, the crowd, and the convenience, so all you're left with is God and grit. And that's where warriors are born. Not in luxury, but in loneliness. Not in noise, but in need. The wilderness is uncomfortable, yes, but it's also essential. You don't grow roots on the mountaintop, you grow them in the valley. And in that dry, dusty place where nothing seems to be working, God is working in you. He's teaching you how to fight without applause, how to stand without support, how to believe without visible evidence. It's not glamorous, but it's glorious, because what God does in the wilderness prepares you for what's next. Look at Moses. Before he parted the Red Sea, he spent years in the wilderness tending sheep. That wasn't wasted time, it was weaponized time. God was building him, breaking him, reshaping him for the assignment ahead. And maybe, just maybe, that's what's happening to you. The silence isn't punishment. It's preparation for what only warriors can carry. See, in the wilderness, the distractions are gone. The filters come off. It's just you, your fears, your faith, and your faith Father. And that's where the real battle happens, not out there, but in here. The wilderness doesn't just test your strength, it reveals it. It's the gym where your spiritual muscles grow. It's the training ground for discipline, for patience, for trust. You learn to hear God's voice more clearly because everything else is stripped away. You start depending on him, not just for blessings, but for breath. And when you come out of that wilderness, you don't come out the same. You come out stronger, you come out sealed, you come out with the kind of faith that doesn't flinch under fire. Because the wilderness doesn't break warriors, it builds them. So stop trying to escape it. Embrace it. Don't rush out of the place God is trying to grow you in. The wilderness is not a delay, it's a design. God isn't just preparing a blessing for you. He's preparing you for the blessing. That quiet season, it's not the end of your story, it's the part where God is writing the strength into your story. And one day when you step into what you've been called to do, you'll look back and thank God not for the ease, but for the wilderness. Because it was there you learned how to fight, how to focus, how to follow. And most of all, how to trust the one who never left your side, even when it looked like no one else was around. That's where warriors are made. Let's be real, one of the hardest things about walking into your destiny is realizing you can't take everybody with you. You've been trying to drag people into places they were never designed to go. Trying to hold on to relationships that God has been quietly loosening from your grip. But here's the truth you need to hear today. Destiny requires distance. Not because you're better than them, but because where God is calling you is different. You've been chosen for something specific, something sacred, and not everyone will understand it or survive it. Abraham couldn't step into covenant until he separated from Lot. And some of you are stuck because you're still trying to make room for people who are only meant to walk part of the journey, not the whole way. Let them go gracefully, gratefully, but go. You see, divine purpose demands focus, and focus requires that you cut off the noise, even when that noise comes from familiar voices. Jesus had 12 disciples, but when it came time for the transfiguration, only 3 went up the mountain with him. Why? Because not everybody is called to the climb. Some people are amazing companions at the base, but they can't handle the elevation. And if you try to pull everybody with you, you risk delaying or diluting what God is trying to do through you. The truth is, there's a version of you that can't emerge until you release who's been keeping you tied to where you used to be. It's not unloving, it's obedient. Destiny is weighty, and God won't let you carry what's sacred alongside what's familiar if it's holding you back. Some of the distance God creates in your life isn't personal, it's providential. He'll separate you to protect what he's putting inside you, because purpose requires a purity of vision. And you can't afford to be surrounded by voices that contradict what God has built. Sometimes you've got to love them from a distance so you can hear Him clearly. If you're always seeking validation from people, you'll always need their permission to move forward. But when God speaks, it's not a conference call. He doesn't need to convince your friends, your circle, your past. You know what He said. So trust the space He's creating. Don't fill it with people He removed. Let the distance do its job. It's not rejection. It's refinement. It's the separation before elevation. I know it hurts. I know it feels like loss. But what if it's actually liberation? What if God is making room not just around you, but within you for something greater? The distance is developing a new strength in you, a deeper dependency, a sharper discernment. And eventually you'll realize that the weight of your destiny is lighter when you're not dragging people who don't belong. Let God reposition your relationships. Some were seasonal. Some were lessons. And some were tests to see if you even choose obedience over comfort. Because you can't carry the cross and everyone else's expectations. At some point you've got to let go, to level up. And when you do, you'll see it clearly. The distance wasn't a detour, it was divine direction. You thought it was a loss. You thought it was the end. That when they walked out, when the door slammed, when the opportunity dried up, you thought something was being taken from you. But what if that rejection wasn't a setback, but a setup? What if it wasn't a curse, but clarity? Because hear me, rejection is not the end of your story. It's the start of a better one. God's not trying to hurt you. He's trying to redirect you. And sometimes, in order to get you to what's next, He has to shut down what's now. You don't need closure when God is opening something new. That closed door, that goodbye, that silence. It's not just something leaving its space being made for something greater to enter. God never subtracts without a plan to multiply. Let me remind you, Jesus was rejected before He was resurrected. He was despised before He was exalted. People who were supposed to love Him walked away. People who promised to stand by Him denied Him. And still He fulfilled His destiny. So what makes you think their rejection can cancel your calling? It can't. It never could. Because people didn't anoint you, God did. And if they walked away, it means they weren't assigned to where you're going. Some doors close not because you failed, but because you've outgrown what's behind them. Some rejections are not about your worth, they're about your weight. You carry something too heavy for shallow spaces. So God in His grace lets things fall apart so you can fall into alignment. Rejection has a way of revealing what affirmation can't. It teaches you to stop depending on who you thought you needed. To stop placing your peace in other people's presence. Because sometimes God has to let them walk out so you learn to walk in purpose. You were waiting for an apology, but God already gave you access. You were replaying the goodbye, but God's week a greater hello. You don't have to chase what walked away. You don't have to beg for what you were never meant to keep. Your value isn't tied to who stays, it's tied to who sent you. And if God allowed the rejection, you can be sure He already scheduled a redirection. What's coming is better than what left, but you've got to stop looking back long enough to see it. So lift your head, dry your tears. Stop rehearsing the conversation in your mind. You didn't lose, you learned. You didn't fall apart, you fell forward. And now with clearer eyes and a lighter heart, you're ready to step into what God has been preparing for you all along. Rejection cleared the room for revelation. It broke your heart, but birthed your healing. And what's on the way? It's worth every tear you cried, because when God closes one door, He doesn't just open another, He builds a new one. One you're finally ready to walk through. So don't resent what left, thank it. It made space. It pushed you. It positioned you. And now, you're not just healed, you're heading somewhere. Rejection didn't stop you. It sent you. You've been waiting for someone to clap for you, to co-sign your calling, to confirm that you're enough. But can I set you free today? Divine confidence doesn't need a crowd. When God speaks over your life, it outweighs every opinion, every silence, every sideways look. You weren't anointed by popularity. You were appointed by purpose. And then that means you don't need everyone to understand you. You just need to understand what God said. His affirmation is your foundation. Before you were formed in the womb, He called you. He set you apart. And when heaven stamps its yes on you, no earthly no can stop it. The applause may be absent. The crowd may be quiet. But that doesn't mean you're off course. It means God is building a confidence that doesn't crumble when people stop clapping. See, crowds can be dangerous. They'll cheer for you on Sunday and crucify you by Friday. That's why your confidence can't be built on how many people are with you. It has to be built on who sent you. God didn't bring you this far to have you beg for approval. When Jesus was baptized, before he performed a single miracle, before he preached one sermon, the Father said, "This is my beloved Son, in whom That's divine confidence being affirmed before the fruit. You've been trying to earn love that God already gave you for free.